Buongiorno! Today I'm gonna be doing my January 2020 wrap-up. I read 9 books in January. Oh my god, it was a great reading month, but I also only really read like 1 big book. The majority were just really small books and like poetry book collections. But anyways, let's get into it. I don't actually own any of the books. The first book I finished and also listened to the audiobook was Lair of Dreams by Loveboat. This has been on like a million TBR videos. I've literally had it on so many TBR videos and I never read it. But finally, the Diviners Club, hosted by Emma Books, Sarah Found an Age, and Monica, pushed me to read this book, and I listened to the audiobook as well, and oh my god, I loved it so much. If you're wondering what this is the Australian edition. It's so beautiful. I love the Australian edition. It's absolutely gorgeous and I'm so happy I own it. But anyways, I love this one so much more than the Diviners. It's been a long time since I read the Diviners, but oh my god, this one was so good. I loved it so much more. It was less creepy. The Diviners was so creepy. Like, murderous ghosts is just like a theme of this series. There was a murderous ghost in this one too, but for some reason this one just was like less creepy and I loved it. We also got so many new characters in this one. Like, oh my god, I love Link so much. I love her. I would die for Link. And we got to know more about Henry. I just love all the characters so much. I love the Dividers. I love this series. I can't believe I waited so long to read this book because it was amazing. There were parts like the finale that was super creepy. Definitely, like, there are creepy scenes, but it definitely didn't freak me out as much as the first book did. And also this book is called Lair of Dreams because the majority of the book takes place in dreams. Like, you know, Henry, we find out in the first book, walks through people's dreams. So the majority of this book takes place in like a dream-like world, which was so cool. Like, I loved the dream world. I loved being in it. It was so cool. 5 out of 5 stars. Without a doubt, like, I loved it even more than the Diviners, which I didn't think was possible because the Diviners was just absolute perfection. I loved it, even though it did freak me out so much. This one didn't as much, which I was really happy about. I just love it. I just love it. I can't wait to read Before the Devil Breaks You. And I'm also scared because I've just heard like a lot of crying about Before the Devil Breaks You and that it will actually break you. So I'm scared to read Before the Devil Breaks You, but I'm so excited and I'm probably gonna order the Australian edition of that one as well because oh my god, these covers are just beautiful. I need them. So yes, 5 out of 5 stars. Read the Diviner series. If you haven't read it yet, like, what are you doing? Like, it's historical fiction, paranormal, murder mystery. I don't know how to describe this book, honestly. Like, it's just like a lot of things wrapped into one, but it just works. Like, the series doesn't shy away from the horrors of the 1920s era. 1920s books focus on like the glitz and the glamour and the flappers and the parties, and well, yeah, that is a part of the 20s. What's also part of the 20s is like the eugenics movement, immigration issues. Like, there's a lot of really bad stuff that happened in 1920s, and especially like for people of color, not a fun time. I really love that this series doesn't shy away from that. Like, yeah, we still get all the flappers and the parties and the glitz and the glamour of the 1920s, but it's not only that. We see all of the horrors that happened in the 20s as well. I just really love this series. This is so well done, so well written, so well crafted. I can't believe it's over. I just love it. I could literally rave about this series forever. It's amazing. And if you haven't read it, what are you doing with your life? Like, seriously, you're missing out. Loveboat is a genius storyteller. I love her. I love her. I just love it. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. The next thing I read is actually not a book, but a webtoon. It's called My Deepest Secret. It's on Webtoon. I forget who the author is, but this webtoon is not the type of things I usually read. So it's a romantic thriller, which just sounds weird, but basically it's about this girl who starts dating this guy. He's like perfect. He's like this nice guy and he's like so perfect in every way, and for her, he just seems too good to be true. But she starts dating this guy and she starts falling for this guy. And the webtoon is told from her perspective, but we also see like behind the scenes of this guy. And turns out this guy is not as sweet and perfect as he seems. He's actually a murderer and is kind of a psychopath. The main character doesn't know that. So the whole time she's like dating this guy and like falling for this guy and like also being like kind of suspicious that like something's going on. But as the reader, you know that he's like killing people and doing like horrible things, and so you're just waiting for her to figure it out. And like, oh my god, it's so good. Like, I am not a thriller fan, and all the violent stuff he does is actually illustrated, and normally I am just so squeamish about violence. I don't like thrillers, so I was shocked about loving this one. I loved it. It's not done. The first season is done, so like part 1 of the story, I guess, is done, but oh my god, I loved it so much. Like, every single week I was looking forward to the next update. I loved it. It's totally free. You can go read it on the Webtoon app. It's called My Deepest Secret. I'll leave a link. Or if you're super squeamish about violence, like, trust me, like, I can't handle anything, and I loved it. So I highly recommend it if you read Webtoons. It was a grand time. I read 2 poetry collections by Upili Chisala. I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. Her second collection, I think, is called Soft Magic, and then her upcoming collection, which I got an arc of, is called A Fire Like You. I found out about this poetry author through Ariel Bassett. She actually did like an Instagram poetry documentary, which I highly recommend you watch. It's amazing. This was one of the poetry authors that she interviewed, and I just loved her. She talked about her poetry, and she was just so well spoken and eloquent, and I loved her. I was like, oh my god, I definitely need to check out her poetry. I love Soft Magic, which is her first one, a little better than A Fire Like You, but I still really loved both of them. Her poetry is just really powerful and empowering, and I really loved it. It's hard to rate poetry and talk about poetry because it's so deeply personal and subjective. Like, I absolutely loved it, but somebody else might think it's not that good or just not relate to it. So I don't know how to review and rate poetry, but I did give the first one 5 stars and the second one 4 stars. She also posts a lot of her poems on Instagram, so if you want to get like a little sample of like what her writing is like, definitely check out her Instagram. I really loved it. Next we have We Used to Be Friends by Amy Spalding. Yes, I don't have the book because I got an arc of it, but the arc was so poorly formatted and it was horrible, and so I had to wait for the book to come out, and I read the ebook. And I also got to meet Amy Spalding, and she did a signing near me, so I got these like really cute stickers. I love them. They're so adorable, so I'm gonna use these as like the book. But anyways, I really loved We Used to Be Friends. Oh my god, it was so well written. Friend breakups is something we never talk about, but everybody goes through one. It's so painful to break up with a friend, to not have a friend in your life that has been there for a long time. It's so painful. Sometimes it's even more painful than a romantic breakup, because this book was heartbreaking, and I'm so happy that this book exists, because there's so many books about romantic breakups, and romantic breakups we always talk about, but friend breakups, never. And there's literally like no other YA book that I can think about that isn't out yet that is about friend breakups. So I'm really happy this one tackled it. Oh my god, it was so good. You get both perspectives of both characters. Like, you get one point of view, one chapter is like in one point of view, the next chapter is in the other point of view, and it goes back and forth. Not only that, but the story is not told in a linear format, which did bother me at times, but I think it was really interesting the way it was done. First chapter, you find out that these two characters are no longer friends, and the main character is one of the main characters. She's going off to college, and she's realizing that like she's no longer friends with Kat, who was like her childhood best friend, and she's like dealing with that. And then you don't know why they broke up. You don't know. You're just kind of thrown into the middle of it, and you kind of have to figure it out by yourself. So well done. It's heartbreaking, and it's so hard to read at times, and it's really emotional, but it's so well done. I loved it. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. Loved it so much. There definitely need to be more books about this, because friend breakups are horrible, and there needs to be more about them. I highly recommend this book. One of the main characters is queer and starts dating a girl in this book too, which I just really loved. I really recommend if you're looking for an emotional tearjerker roller coaster of a book, but a good one. A good one. It's a good cry. It's a good cry. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Dear Girls by Ali Wong. So I had to listen to the audiobook because she narrates it herself. Bunch of letters that she wrote to her 2 daughters. I mean, it is kind of like a memoir. I really love this. Definitely, though, check out Ali Wong's comedy specials first, because her comedy is very dirty, very TMI. I love all of her comedy specials. Like, I've never laughed so hard. Like, I love her comedy specials on Netflix. Like, I just love Ali Wong. I follow her on Instagram. I think she's amazing. I think she's hilarious. So going into this, like, I was already used to her humor, her way of saying things, and I was already used to her. If you're not used to her, it can be very jarring, and you might not like it, because she's very, very like loud and dirty, and she's a lot. if you don't like that type of humor, you probably won't like this book. But if you do like Ali Wong and you do like her humor, definitely you will like this book. I loved it. It was just so fun to learn more about her. I was laughing so much at some of the stories, and a lot of them were also really heartfelt and emotional too. I just really loved learning about her journey to stand up, and it was just so awesome, like hearing her tell the story as well. Like she also talks about like what it's like being a female comedian. Like it's not fun, and also just being an Asian woman as well, like in comedy world that is super white and super male. It was difficult for her for a lot of different reasons, and I really loved hearing about that because I always wondered like, why is there not so many female comedians? And she talks about how like a lot of things she had to do to get where she was. She had to put herself in a lot of dangerous situations that could have ended up really badly, but luckily nothing ever bad happened to her, but it could have went in a bad direction because of her being an Asian woman. Her husband has like an epilogue at the end, and he also narrates that part in the audiobook, which I really love because she talks a lot about her husband. He's like a running joke in a lot of her comedy specials, and she also talked a lot about him in the book. So it was really awesome hearing his point of view about everything that Ali said and like their life and how they fell in love and whatever. It was really cool hearing his side of the story because you know that like her husband grew up with like a famous dad. It's almost like that was like training for him to be like Ali Wong's husband, which I love. They're just like, they're just so cute together too. I just love them. I love Ali Wong so much. If you love her too, definitely check out her autobiography / letters to her daughters. It was a great time. I loved it. Next, I read The Deep by River Solomon and a bunch of other people, and oh my god, I was so disappointed in this book, and I am so sad about this. The premise just sounded amazing. So basically all of the black slaves that were thrown off of slave ships, instead of dying and drowning, they turned into these like mermaid-like sea creatures with tails, and they kind of created their own society. Like the concept of that is amazing. Like I love that. But the execution, I did not like it. The audiobook was narrated by Davine Diggs, aka Thomas Jefferson from Hamilton. So the audiobook was amazing, but just, I don't know what it was about this book did not work for me. It was only a 4-hour audiobook. I feel like so much of the world and these like mermaid-like creatures was not explained. I was so confused, and the way the story was told was just very confusing. You're just kind of like thrown in the middle and you just kind of figure it out, and you don't really get a lot of explanation. I don't know. I'm really sad about this because I was really excited about it. Like I love like mermaid, sea creatures type things, and usually a lot of those stories are told by white people. I struggled with this book and I'm really sad about it, and I think I'm in the minority because I was reading all of the reviews and so many glowing reviews for this book. So don't take my review as like it's saying it's a bad book. It just personally did not work for me, and I'm so sad about it because I was so excited to read it, and I actually did listen to the audiobook and I did enjoy like listening to it because Davine Diggs is amazing, but the actual content I did not like, and I'm so sad about it. I did give it like 3 stars because I mean it's not a bad book, it just didn't work for me, and I did enjoy some parts. Like there were some scenes I was like, oh, I like this, but the majority of the time I was like, I don't know what's going on, what is happening. I really wanted to like this one and I didn't, and it's really sad. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Loveboat Taipei by Abigail Hing Wen. Showed up on Goodreads, somebody like added it, and I read the description. I'm like, oh my god, this sounds amazing. It's basically about this girl who goes to this language immersion program in Taiwan. I guess that's what it's called, but there's like no supervision. Love this book, but I think the marketing was completely wrong. It was marketed as like a really fun, fluffy rom-com, and like, oh yeah, there's gonna be so many parties, and it's gonna be like, people are gonna be drinking, it's gonna be like a fun like summer type story, and it is that, but it's so much more than that. Not only that, there's some dark topics in this book, like really dark topics. It is not a fluffy rom-com. There definitely are scenes that feel like very rom-com-esque, but it's not a fluffy book at all. There's some really heart-wrenching scenes in this book. There's some really dark stuff. Definitely check out trigger warnings because I think this does a disservice to the book because people go in thinking it's gonna be a really fun, fluffy rom-com summer story, but it's not. I still really loved it. Like I loved it. I finished it in 2 days. Like I could not stop listening to the audiobook. I just needed to know what happens next. I just could not put it down. I was listening to the audiobook like 24/7, literally just dropped everything I had to do for the day not a good idea. So much fun listening to the audiobook, and also it really hit me in the feels because again, it's really dark. One character who is Chinese Italian, and I was really excited about this character, and then he fell into a lot of Italian men stereotypes and a lot of just Italian stereotypes, and it just made me so angry and upset. I'm just so sick of Italians always being presented in such a stereotypical, non-nuanced way. It happens all the time. And if there was another Italian character, if he wasn't the only one, like the way he was portrayed and described would have been fine because there would have been somebody else there. But the fact that he was the only Italian character and he falls into all of those stereotypes just kind of sends the message that all Italian men are like that. And it just really rubbed me wrong and I really hated it. And that I still really love this book and I highly recommend it. But the Italian Chinese rep was terrible. Could have been such a great moment of representation for Chinese Italians, but no. Apparently there's gonna be a book 2. Yes, I am hyped. I totally want to read a book 2. I gave it 4 stars. The last book I read in January was Shadow of the Batgirl by Sarah Koof. Sarah Koof really lays down all of Batgirl's origin story and really explains things to you. Like, you don't need to know anything about Batgirl going into this comic. And I really love that. The art was just amazing. Oh my god, I was blown away by every panel. Like, I highly recommend you read it or even just look at the art. Oh my god, it's so amazing. I really love this. Like, I didn't know anything about Batgirl, but I really love this. Like, the second I started reading it, I just wanted to keep reading. It was so good. A Goodreads review for this book, and I have a lot of pictures of the artwork, so I'm gonna leave it down below. I highly recommend you check it out. I really love this one. And I'm so excited to read more of like these DC like graphic novel type. It's kind of like a graphic novel. It's not really a comic book. It's more of like a YA graphic novel. There's not a whole lot of diversity in superhero comics. So it was really awesome seeing a Chinese superhero. Those are all of the books I read in January. I had an amazing reading month. I pretty much gave everything 4 or 5 stars. Like, oh my god, which is great because December was lackluster. Comment down below what was your favorite book you read in January. For me, definitely Lair of Dreams. Oh my god, I love that one so much. And also maybe Loveboat Taipei. I love that one. My social media links are all down below. My Twitter, my Bookstagram, my Goodreads. Arrivederci!